Hello and welcome back. This is episode 42 of the Epoch podcast. I'm your host, PerryThePig. With me, as always, is my co-host here, Dread. And today we have a special guest. Dread, welcome back, first of all.
Hello, this is Dread, and in today's podcast topic, we're going to be talking about probably Warlock for the majority of it. So, Pug, today we have TheCurseBG joining us. Today, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thank you, first of all, for the invite. I've seen your podcast a bunch of times, so it's always a good time. And the curse. I've made a few build guides for last Epoch, and I think I did one or two game reviews for a few other games as well. But last Epoch has been a big passion of mine ever since I had a kid and I realized I can't play Dota anymore. And so here we are today.
As you know, as a fellow dad, I hear you. It's nice to have a game where, like, honestly, comparing this to like Path of Exile, it's nice to have a game where like a map takes like 20 seconds instead of 15 minutes to like loot all the stuff. Just like, yeah, just nice and fast.
Yeah. But or an hour like Dota. Oh,
an hour. But Curse, I know you. The very first thing that I knew about you with regard to last Epoch was a build that you were playing in the long lull before 1.0, and you were playing a dam, and I think you were using the two-handed axe, and you're like, people are like, no one's playing this build. It's so strong. Why is no one talking about this? And the answer was, we're all just waiting for 1.0. Like that's why no one's talking about anything, because we're all just chilling. But also, since then,
like, between you and I, farming the Soulfire Bastion is like eating nails. So.
It's sometimes it's not fun.
Yeah.
But since then, I've seen you make a number of build guides on YouTube. I've seen your channel growing on Twitch, which is wonderful. And recently, you were participating in the race to level 100, hosted by both Bina and Vision GL, I believe. And you got first place Warlock or fourth place overall, something like that.
I think it was second Warlock, fifth overall. Yeah,
second Warlock, fifth overall.
Yeah.
But absolutely absurd performance. I tuned in a couple times to see you racing to level 100, and you were just like, first of all, you had the classic like PoE glaze over your face, like haven't slept in a couple hours. You know what I mean? But you were flying at like Mach 10. It's like, holy shit, this guy's going fast.
Yeah, it was a good time.
And now that you're well rested, it was a good time. I want to start there because I think that's like the most relevant thing for people who have been interested in 1.0. Like, that was a big event. There were lots of people who were like all participating in it. Lots of Path of Exile gamers. Some WoW people were checking out the game. You were here as well. Like, what was it like racing to level 100? Like, what prep did you do ahead of time? And then what was it like actually playing the game?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think I've mentioned this to you as well, Perry, and maybe even to you, Dread, as well. I'm not big on leveling and on new characters. I like to be at level 100, and I like to do min-max stuff. It's just not my passion. And I see you guys, and I've asked, I think, Perry this. I'm like, how do you do it? I'm like, how do you level like 100 characters and not die a little bit inside?
Well, so what I do, I just level one of each mastery, and then I respec after that. That's like as much, like that's how much I can tolerate it, essentially. And then whenever anyone asks me for leveling guides, I just send them all to Tarek, because it's like, go to Tarek. I don't want to do with it. Go to Tarek.
Like, on the one hand, Tarek does a good job, and on the other hand, I don't want to. So yeah, it's nice to have people like him who make leveling guides.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that time I thought, okay, 1.0, it's going to be fun, and I want to get to 100 as fast as I can. That was my objective when I approached the race. It wasn't so much about the race itself, because I'm not technically the best. I'm not the best racer. I don't enjoy the leveling part. So I figured I'm not even going to be top 10. I just want to get to 100 so I can do my thing and make builds, right? Mm-hmm. So I can do my usual thing. But I don't know. I did practice a bunch of leveling beforehand. And I think I did like 5 or 6 runs up to campaign completion. And that's 4 hours, and that was too much for me. At some point, I was like, no, I'm not doing this ever
Well,
again.
I think the problem is I think a lot of people, they think that the longest part of the grind is the leveling, and like that's like the most important part, but the end game grind, getting to empowereds and getting all the extra XP and corruption pushing, I think is just as important, if not more important, than those first 2 hours that you're playing a new character. I think that's what I saw when I was like looking at like all of the racing and all that, other than the instability and all that. I won't even get into that. But like when that wasn't happening, I saw a lot of people that were trying to race 100, like they'd get to like monoliths in like maybe 2 hours or whatever, right? Or they get to
Yeah.
empowered monos, and then they'd be there and just be like, what do I do now? And it's like, well, all you did was test leveling.
Yeah, I think I caught up a bunch. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of that, like Dredd just briefly mentioned the grind to get to empowered monoliths. They drastically decreased how much stability you need in the 1.0 patch.
I noticed.
I told I told a member of EHG this when they were hanging on Twitch chat. I said, getting to empowered monoliths no longer feels like I'm getting punched in the gut. Like it's so much better than it used to be. Like the stability bonus. Oh.
I agree.
The best thing is, I didn't even know that this was the fact, by the way, after leveling both my characters. I literally only found out very recently. I didn't even know, but like I didn't complain about it because it was better, right? So
what, the stability change? It costs like half as much stability. Oh, it's totally wonderful.
Yeah, I think the normal monoliths are cool for new players and all that, but I think that like reducing the grind to get to 100, I mean, to get to the 100 monos is better. Now all they need to do is just add a little bit of content on top of that. But the corruption change, I won't even get started on that.
I mean, I would like to transition to that because I know both of you are pushing
corruption.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So Curse, I know that you're like an end game person. You spend a lot of your time worrying about like the nitty gritty of your characters. Exactly how much damage can you push out? What kind of abuse things can you do to get like 300,000 ward, or using a bug to your advantage? Like you like that kind of thing and pushing your characters to the extreme. How has the new corruption felt for you? Is it easier, harder, more fun, less fun?
Honestly, I think it's a combination of a bunch of classes being way, way, way more OP than they should be. But also the scaling, and we can talk about that later too. But the scaling of corruption, I thought they would make it more exponential. I'm a little disappointed that it's very linear. So it accomplishes the exact same thing it did before. If you have a crazy OP build, you can push it to infinity. You know what I mean? Like you can't, if you can off screen absolutely everything in the game, the only bottleneck might be your shade kills. And that's about it.
So now that I've pushed 2 characters to like 700 corruption now, and they're not OP characters, mind you, they're real characters, not just sitting around with like 60k ward, right? They're real characters, right? So just a 60k or 600k or however much it is. After pushing 2 characters, I found that, how like for the longest of time, Perry, the meta was EHP oriented, where like you need to survive a one shot, right? Well, back in the day, that was the meta for the most part, and it kind of is now if you go really, really, really far. But
what's really, really far? Like over 1,000?
Over like 1,500 or something.
Wow, okay.
Shit like that. That's like the really far numbers. But the idea back in the day was the modifiers on the monsters get so ungodly high. You can get such a high multiplication modifier to it, right? And so inconsistent that the only thing that mattered was not getting one tapped. That's all that mattered, because everything else didn't matter. And that's why a lot of people, they would play like low life builds, because originally the weakness of low life builds was supposed to be the sustain. Like you take a big hit, but it takes a while to get back to your ward maximum, right? And that's supposed to be the weakness of low life builds, right? That's supposed to be it. But the problem is, in the old corruption system, you never have to do like the old corruption system, all you cared about was not getting one tapped. But now that the new corruption is here, and it's like averaged across the board. Every single mob hits around the same all the way through, right? Or it's like a CAD, kind of like a more of a just a diagonal and much less of a like a spiky trip. I found that sustain has been the biggest factor by far. So, like for instance, when I was playing the Electrify Javelin build, I ended up removing Electrify, like the not the Javelin, but like the
The
Smite
smite
build.
thing, healing hand.
Yeah, I ended up just removing just actual EHP from my build just to be able to like maintain my HP value, like my 4K HP value and stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, well, if I'm playing for sustain at this point at like 700 corruption, what's a build that has really good sustain? So then I started mucking with the shaman with like the font thing, right?
Mhm.
The font thing. And then it was like, oh, like now whenever I get hit, I go instantly back to 4K like ward or whatever, right? Which it is now. And like it's a huge difference than before. Cause like I said before, like you just get one tap, but now like you actually have time to leech and sustain. I think Void Knight's a lot better than people are giving it credit for right now, by the way, because of that. But I think after a certain point, obviously the one taps start coming in, right? Obviously. But the problem with that is the way that the LP to corruption scales and the favor and all that, unless if you have a build that, or if you're in a party, unless you have a build that is literally deleting everything without any effort whatsoever, there is a maximum of corruption that your build probably should be pushing before the grind gets laborious, right? Before like for instance, right now for me, for most builds, like 700, I cruise and I get like so much favor per hour. It's like, remember, I'm MG too, so like currency per hour does matter to me, right? So like doing 700 monos really, really fast has been way more efficient than like just trying to push as far as possible. Unless if you have a broken build that can just like do it, like push as far as possible while also going fast, right? Like, but that's a discussion for another day.
Do you think 700 is like still nice and fast for you? You said 1500 was like the laborious breakpoint. We're like, that's the really big number.
It gets annoying. Like the amount of favor that you get there is not worth the time it kills the mobs for a normal build. By the way, when I bring this up,
so Curse, I think Curse is up at 1,000 corruption. How is that feeling for you?
It was, well, first of all, Warlock's damage is not insane. Warlock's damage is okay, right? Yeah. It's, I think, compared to some of the other classes,
I was referring to Falconer, by the way.
Yeah, no, I know. I know exactly what you mean, but I'm just saying in terms of relative to some other classes, maybe it's slightly higher, but 1,000 corruption was pretty slow for me. And I don't really care for pushing corruption. It gets boring, right? Like I never pushed corruption in the previous patches. This time I did it just because, I don't know, it's a nice round number. But my biggest issue with corruption is if you can push 1,000, going from 1,000 to 1,500, the more multipliers go from 1,000 more to, let's say, 16 or 1,700 more, that's de facto a 60% more health and damage, or maybe not even. It's you go from, let's say you go from 11x on the damage and HP to 17x, right? So it's like 50% more damage and HP on enemies. So if you can do 1,000, you're very likely to be able to do like 16, 1,700. It's just a boring grind. And that's the problem with linear scaling. It's like anything linear, it's diminishing returns. So the enemies get diminishing returns on their HP and damage bonuses.
Do you think?
So I think it needs to be exponential. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly what you were saying previously. It was like maybe we need some exponential scaling. Like if you're pushing to an 800, if you're pushing to 1,000, maybe you know what you're doing. Maybe you're ready for some, exponential growth instead of like more linear growth at the same rate. Interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if I started pushing corruption as well with like certain builds, like I think that would be exactly what I run into. But that's why I'm happy that I've been sitting at 700 and just cruising. Because like I said, I'm making hella profit, man. Like MGO, like I'm doing profit. Great.
My personal experience. My personal experience has been I'm on like my 4th or 5th character at this point, and I like rerolling a lot. I don't hate the leveling process, but my healing hands character was at like 500 corruption. And it's like I could keep going. 500 feels good. It feels like maybe a good benchmark that I might recommend to somebody else for like a good build or something. But Like going after that, I don't know. For me, I'm fine. I think 500, 500 to 700, probably gonna
500
be
to 700.
Yeah.
Is like the new 300 essentially for me. At
like a
least
nice
for me,
cozy place to
anyways.
farm, right?
Yeah, that's like where you could afford to lose some damage and some survivability for like double movement speed boots and stuff, and your farming would end up being significantly better. Because I think that's like the factor that a lot of people don't understand. It's like at least for MG side, I've seen a lot of people have a terrible time with MG, and I'm like, well, like, why are you sitting at like 30% movement speed? You're
Yeah.
doing like two mono echoes an hour.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And there's not even a ranking or anything for corruption. So
Yeah. Once there is a ranking for corruption, that'll be a lot more interesting.
We'll see all the tryhards crawling back, trying to get as much corruption as possible.
No, we'll just see all the warlocks up there.
I saw a YouTube video. I totally forget who put the video out, but it was somebody who's arguing that movement speed boots are damage because your damage is like damage per second or like damage per minute. It's how much damage you can like deal to monsters, and that equates to like farming items and farming like reputation and favor. And movement speed is like downtime between packs of monsters. So like if you're neglecting movement speed, it's like neglecting penetration or something. It's like, oh, that's an interesting point. I kind of like that point.
It's so weird, the dichotomy now of the MG stuff versus the COF stuff, and like just in general, because like you have people like me who play too much and are playing for a profit now in MG at this point. And then you have like people that in COF like you, Perry, where it's just like, oh, I just drop my items on the ground. It's like it's hard because whenever I'm talking to someone and talking about MG, or I'm talking about like, oh, like my build, I need like 30% more movement speed or whatever, something like that, where before I feel good, and they'll look at me like I'm dumb. And I'm like, what do you mean? Right. And then I ask them, are you MG or COF? And they're like, oh, I'm COF. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
It's non-trivial for a COF. It's fun. It's got a good storyline that goes along with it, but it's non-trivial.
I think you eventually like want to like be faster and stuff like that, but I don't think that you need to be. And I think that's like the difference, right? I think if you want to be successful at MG, you definitely have to think about profit per hour, or you just play too much like I do, right?
So while we're talking about like MG COF, like I'm COF. I have a funny story, and I'm gonna give an anecdote real quick before I ask Curse what he's been doing, because I actually don't know which guild he's in. But I'm currently in the process of gearing up a rogue who uses intelligence, and I've run into this awful, stupid problem that frustrates me. And if you don't know, a rogue literally cannot craft intelligence on their gear. So I need to find an exalted intelligence chest piece and an exalted intelligence helmet on a different class so that I can LP them onto unique items so that I can wear them on my rogue. I'm like, man, if I were in Merchant's Guild, this problem would have disappeared in 10 seconds. So it's mostly been smooth sailing for me, but there's definitely been some downsides to COF.
I love that. I love that.
So Curse, it's so stupid, Dread. Curse, how I don't know what guild you're in. What guild you in? What's been your experience for it?
Before I mention my stuff, that's a big problem, I think, for Rune Master with that chest piece.
Oh,
you cannot spawn.
Interesting.
Strength, right?
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Right?
It definitely makes it a puzzle.
Yeah, but me, I'm COF, and it's been a good experience so far. But certainly, you can see the benefits of both, and clearly, if you're running for min-max endgame gear, MG is hands down like way easier to get end game gear. So
I think the biggest problem is when we talk about end game gear, people don't understand what we talk about. So to make it a lot more clear, there are certain items that even in MG are impossible to get. It just doesn't matter. Like for instance, I have been waiting for a 4LP Titan Heart on the market.
Woe is you.
Come on, man.
Right? Yeah, I've been waiting.
Come on, man. 3LP Titan Heart is unattainable.
I know it is. But what I'm trying to get at though is people, they're like, oh my God, it's impossible to get to top gear at MG. I'm like, what do you mean by top gear? That's a good question, because like, you know, like you have to be realistic you know, with your ideas. Like so the problem is like they'll see that you can get 4 LP on something, and they're like, well, that's the tippity top of gear, and they'll just be sitting there in the market just refresh on a 4 LP Ravenous Void, and it's like that's never gonna happen, right? So I think expectations of what actual endgame gear is. So I've had a few conversations about this already, and I've had people send me planners of like insane things, like MG sucks because I can't get this gear. I'm like, you really think you're gonna fucking get this gear in like COF 2, you ding dong? Like a 4 LP, like what was it? I think it was like a 4 LP Prism Wraps. I'm like, yeah, you're totally just gonna go drop one in COF or the Magic Find. Like, people need to be realistic when it comes to endgame gear. Like, for instance, the character I just finished, the Shaman Tornado one, right? I think that it's very close to like what I would call the finished for that build, because like you could do more, but for instance, I have a 4 LP Urzel's Pride. It costs only 7 million gold. I have a 3 LP Peak of the Mountain, a 3 LP Cinder Song, 2 Font of the Erase with almost perfect stats for what I want, a 2 LP Terrace Path, multiple, and a 2 LP Blood of the Exile that I swap into. And I have, I think, like some of the best like exalted things I could have at the time, at least for like from what I looked at, right? And that is like what I would call very close to finished. And the problem is like, well, Dread, why don't you get a 4 LP Peak? Why don't you get a 4 LP Cinder Sock? Wouldn't it be easy, Dread? It's MG. I was like, or like, wouldn't it be easy to get in COF? I'm like, those things don't drop. Like, you got to be realistic with what you mean by that, because otherwise you will be sitting here and making yourself disappointed when like the 4 LP Prism Wraps don't drop, right?
Like, do you really need all 4 of those, or can you just like get 3 and be
5
lucky?
LP.
Yeah.
But honestly,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
If I were to just summarize my thoughts, because I just kind of mentioned something, but my overall impression of the two is they're both viable and they're both a lot of fun. And this is you got to remember, this is the first time they're implementing this. There's no system like this anywhere else. I think we should expect some fine tuning to be necessary for this to be good. I think MG right now is really bad in a situation where nobody can buy until you're rank 8. So you're creating a system where you have infinite. 1 second, I have a kid invasion. I get the kids are running around. But I was just saying, you're creating a situation where you have infinite supply and 0 demand until somebody enters that rank 8 spot. That's bad design. Whenever you have infinite supply, 0 demand, the supply demand curve is kind of broken, and the prices are going to be busted until somebody enters and starts buying some stuff out. It just creates too much of a gap between suppliers and demand, and that needs to get fixed. But overall, like these are things that I expect them to be a problem and to be fine-tuned over the next however many months or years. And I think the system overall is phenomenal. That's what I want to highlight. It's phenomenal overall.
Before 1.0 launch, Dread and I were talking about like who's going to go COF, who's going to go Merchants Guild, and Dread signed up for going Merchants Guild because like before that point, he and I were like both really on board with going COF instead.
I mean, I think my opinion on that hasn't changed, by the way. But
okay,
we'll
I hear you.
Into that.
I want to speak to an emotional angle here. I've heard people say that Merchants Guild is better or that COF is better. I've heard people say that one needs a buff or a different one needs a buff instead. And the fact that there's so many disparate opinions about what's strong, what's weak, what needs a buff, what doesn't, makes me think that the system is probably pretty good. Like, yeah, right? we can fine tune it, but like this seems like a really good system if there's so many people disagreeing about what's good and bad.
I think my biggest problem with MG is it is good, but not for the kind of mentality. Okay, like for instance, it is good for the people who play way too much. Like for instance, the Curse and I, like MG would be amazing for us, which it is, but it is awful if you don't have enough time to reach rank 7 or rank 8. It is an awful time. It's like playing worse COF. It's awful. Like it's awful for 99% of people and absolutely broken amazing for 1% of people. Just
using those particular numbers is kind of spooky.
Yeah, it is a little spooky because.
So you said like rank 7 or rank 8. Is it rank 7 or rank 8? That's like level 95 or something, isn't it?
No, that's even further than that. That's
Oh,
like
is
level,
it?
it was like level 98 for me.
Okay.
But that's because I fucked up my favorite game.
Gotcha.
But like, so the reason why I say this is, remember how I was saying like, oh, like I got this 3LP Cinder song and all this and all that. You guys assume I actually spent gold on the Cinder song.
People were listing stuff for like 0 gold, weren't
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that is so weird.
they? This
That
is a
is-
great opportunity to make a PSA for the folks who are listening here in chat.
Don't list things for
yeah.
0 gold.
It's literally does nothing to list something for 0 gold. You get reputation by or favor. You get favor by listing the item, not by actually selling the item. So listing things for 0 gold does it achieves
it's
nothing.
Partly my fault because day 1 or day 2, I thought it worked like that, but it was a bug with the UI that Carve had to explain to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There was a bug with the UI. So whenever you would list the favor, you wouldn't get the reputation until after you went out and like logged out or whatever, which was annoying, by the way.
Got it.
But that is why everyone thinks that and why there's the
So it's your fault. Okay, good.
It is my fault. Yeah, we can just say that it's my fault. Yeah, but like that's like, but yeah, like I said, the rank 7 or rank 8 grind is awful. It's just awful. Like day 1 for me. The thing is like it wasn't bad for me because I had been playing Last Epoch for the past 4 years, right? So like I played a good build. Like I think Electrify Smite was a pretty good build, and it seems like all of the community enjoyed it as well, by the way. But the problem is, for someone that MG is supposed to be good for, like the random casual, right? It's awful for them. It's just straight up awful because the reputation grind is insurmountable for them.
Like
For
it's
me,
not
it was
good for the casual player until they get to level 98.
For me, it was
Weird.
like another day at Sunday. Like it was just like how I usually play the video game. I'm like, I'm used to playing like this. But for a new player or someone who doesn't understand the market and doesn't understand what is good and what is bad and stuff like that, right? It's like playing Path of Exile without a price checking like a thing, without a
Different
UI
game.
on a
Without
website,
a loot filter.
right? Yeah, without anything. And it is, and now that might be a 1.0 kind of thing where like, you know, it's new and all, but at the same time, if a new player in like a year from now, when everyone is seasoned at Merchant's Guild, comes in and tries to like actually buy things and stuff like that, I can foresee a very bad future for that. So I hope that like the biggest change I would like is, I don't know if anyone else in MG is down for this anyways, but I think that it should be much more granular with the ranking structure. So like, instead of being like, I can buy LP legendaries or LP uniques or whatever, it can be like, I can buy a 1 LP. Then I can buy a 2 LP unique.
And then
Yeah.
3 LP
I agree.
unique.
I agree.
Someone in Twitch chat has like
I can
a similar
buy-
opinion. They're
I can
saying
buy
like
a T6 item.
yeah,
and a
like splitting up
T7
tier
item,
6 and tier 7.
and
Yeah,
then a double exalted item, and then
I'm on
stuff
board.
like that. That's how it should be. I think that's the first change that would go a long way, because it would make it a much more gradual change instead of this just like crazy grind up until rank 7 before like you get to actually do things. Like the thing is, the best fucking part, okay, is, sorry for cursing, but I have perfect evidence of this. I have my day 1 gear and my day 1 video. Then I have my day 3 video where I finally got to merge. Like, so I got my day 1 video where it's my day 1 gear, right? I'm at like 200 corruption or whatever. Then I have my day 2 video where I'm at like 300 corruption or whatever, and I'm pushing. And I just got to rank 8. And then right after that, builds done.
800 corruption.
Yeah. Like builds done like instantly. Already in 700. It was that big of a power boost. I'm like, it should be a much more granular change.
I think they have to make it so that you can list and buy the same items at the exact same tier. It doesn't make sense that you cannot buy, but you can list. And it just creates this disparity between players who have higher levels.
If you could, like, but the problem is also as well, is if you couldn't list items until that rank, it would be so much worse.
Certain items.
So
Certain
bad.
items. Certain items only.
Yeah. I'm so happy
Yeah.
that they made it so you could actually sell all the items, because I couldn't imagine what it would be like if I had.
Because you would have nothing to buy at that point.
Yeah, I would just be playing SSF at that point without COF.
Just bad
It would be
SSF, sure.
awful. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just think that, like, for a game that prides itself on being an easier PoE and an easier like ARPG in general, the Merchants Guild is a complete hard left field from that like philosophy. Like, remember the Glyph of Insight thing? And how we want crafting to be easy.
Easy and intuitive, by the way.
Yeah, and then it's like, we don't want third-party tools, and then now we have a Tunk Lab calculator for Glyph of Insight, right?
Yeah.
I think MG is the same way, where it's just like, we want all of this to be easy, and then MG is just so ungodly complicated for absolutely no reason other than the fact that, like, there might be an RMT Spectre behind it. Ooh, you know, like, and I think that, like, it does a disservice for the whole point of the game, which is supposed to be an easier time. Right?
Let me step in at that point, because I think we talked quite a bit about Merchants Guild already. So Curse, I know you and I are both playing in COF right now. So I've done 100 character and like a couple characters to 80, and I've done like a number of prophecies at this point. What has been your experience with COF? Is it like good for gearing? How much of the prophecy system are you engaging with? What's it feel like?
The loot explosion. It feels
nice.
great.
It's so good.
Great.
Yeah. I've seen a few.
Right? But, you know, as you gear up and up, it's the same thing with any RPG. It becomes harder and harder to find an upgrade. And that's a natural progression. But still, the fact that you can target farm those better now more than before, I think I really love that. That's a huge upgrade in the game. Before, you know, those dropping uniques blessings rewards were so bad. Then you could find one in, I don't know, 20 monos, maybe 10. And then you do it and you never get what you want. I've farmed those for like weeks and not gotten the item that I've needed, even though it's a decently common drop. I think that's going to be resolved now. Being able to pick up the prophecies that you want, just farm up a bunch of favor and go and target farm. I think it was a huge upgrade. At the same time, though.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
The last thing I was going to say is the one thing that we're lacking is target farming boss drops. That's something MG has a massive advantage on.
Absolutely.
You cannot target farm boss drops on COF, whereas on MG, you're just going to buy it. You know what I mean? Like 2 OP heart, easy. What are you going to say, Story?
One of the things that we used to rag on in last Epoch before 1.0 is trying to farm like exalted glove, belt, and boots. And Soulfire Bastion helped a little bit because you could go there on the specific days when exalted glove, belt, boots were available in the shop. But like other than that, like you didn't really have a good way. You could farm unique items or like unique gloves, but like where do you get like the exalted movement speed? Where do you get the exalted hybrid health? And having the prophecy system fill in the gap has been amazing. Like, you want some hybrid health gloves? Let me show you all of my prophecies. You go kill the set like one monster, boom, loot explosion. Like, you'll get something that's usable there, and that feels really good to finally have some target farming in that regard.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here. I'm just like,
poor Merchants Guild.
I just buy my item.
Stupid. You know what's funny about that? It's come to many people's attention. Speaking of boss drops, that in the dungeons, Temporal Sanctum has a guaranteed drop, and the idea behind the guaranteed drop for the dungeon is that you can have the legendary oven, the cooker, and they want to give you something to cook in case you didn't bring anything along with you. But there's no such mechanic for Soulfire Bastion and for the Lightless Arbor. You can kill the boss and literally get no unique item, which some people didn't know, and I may or may not have forgotten. But yeah, you might just get nothing, and you got to start over. Yeah, fucking Merchants Guild.
I bought my 3 LP Peak the Mountain instead of farming it for myself.
Look at that.
Like, you can have the 5 million gold, stranger. I don't care. I want my helmet. Thank you.
Curse, I'm thinking about the gold sinks as well, because Dread's got 5 million gold to spend on these things. Are you doing the Lightless Arbor as a gold sink at all? Where's your gold going?
I'm saving it for stash tabs.
Stash
tabs. I mean, we should be changing the guild to the stash tab guild.
Stash tab.
Because you get to fill them too. Well, I just like the thing is,
Brad, how many stash tabs do you have? Like 4?
No, I think it's like 20 right now, but
Oh,
that's because I
wow.
have. So in the beginning, I was playing it like normal. Okay, I was playing it like I normally would. Halfway through, I realized that I did not need dump tabs for crafting materials, like crafting exalteds. You know how like I had like 40 tabs? I don't fucking need that anymore. I just look it up on the trade website, on the trade thing, right? I just go buy it. Like, oh, I need something with T6 movement speed and like some decent affixes to slam into my 2 LP, Blood of the Exile that I sniped for 200k gold. Yeah, let me just go buy it on the market. They're my stash tab. And now literally I just have 3 sell tabs that like dump sell tabs that I use. And I just like I use the ROG principle. So if you're not familiar with Path of Exile, guys, there's a person in there's an NPC you can interact with from Expedition called ROG, and you can use him to craft items for you, and you can sell these items, right? And the principle with ROG is to just craft decent gear from him and then put it in a dump tab that all costs like 1 divine or whatever. It's called the ROG principle. And the thing is like, oh, this item looks awful, but you're buying it from me for 1 divine? Sure. And people will buy those items. So like, for instance, I'll just take a whole dump tab of exalted items. I'll list it all for 150 gold each. That is just like whatever, right? Just a random exalted item. And all of a sudden I get 20 cells, and that's a lot of gold. And people are buying the items. So at least that part of the economy is working. But I have like 400 plus listed items on the market right now. And I bet that only 10% of those are actually going to sell, but I still end up turning a profit because of that. It's like,
is your name listed on them?
No, it's not.
It's probably a good thing.
It's completely anonymous. Well, no, I went and looked. The thing is, I have 400, right? I went and looked at chests. There's 100k chests on the market. There is no problem with supply and demand in that regard, except for the biggest of items. Go ahead.
Talking about supply and demand, I have a really good question from my chat, and feel free to change the topic if we're running late and we got to talk about something else. But this is a great question for MG. What do we think about the recent duping problem and how that's affecting the MG market?
I'll be honest, I haven't even I've heard rumors about it, but I haven't even seen it like in action.
I know about the amulet at the level 5 amulet, Gambler's Fallacy.
Yeah,
people are like duping that and selling it for 500 gold. I have no idea what the duping problem is.
So there is an Omnis. Let me find you a screenshot.
I think it's not just Omnis. I've heard about.
Oh, I know, but let me send it to him so that he understands.
Okay, I want to see this. I don't think I've seen this Omnis.
All right,
now I'm interested.
I'm gonna link it in chat here. Here you go. You tell me what you think happened there, Perry.
Where is it?
I linked it in chat. I'll link it to you, Curse. One moment here.
They're suspiciously similar. They have all the exact same rolls on them. Oh my god, it's 2 LP. Oh, I didn't even look at the LP.
One moment here.
All right, so it's an Omnis with exactly the same rolls on it in every single way, and it's got 2 LP.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. That's probably duped. There you go on Discord.
That's probably duped.
Yeah, and there's a lot of so for instance, another screenshot that we found. One moment here, I gotta find it. It was a bunch of idols that were all listed at the same time that all had the same exact roles, and there's like 20 of them.
Really?
One moment, I gotta find it.
And I'll be honest with you guys, even before the season, somebody was telling me that duping exists in last Epoch before the season started, and I was like, "Are you sure?"
There's been visual duping that existed for a long time, where like it looks like something's like been duplicated in your inventory, but like if you log out, log in, the item disappears.
If you want to look over the evidence, I sent it to you.
They're all listed the exact same. They all have 10 damage. They all have 25. It's really good. That thing's really good.
Look at the times. Look at the times too.
Oh.
It tells you the times.
0 minutes ago, 0 minutes ago, 1 minute ago, 1 minute ago, 0 minutes ago. Oh, they're all listed. Okay, cool. Interesting. All right, cool.
What are the chances?
I feel like as though they're doing a very poor job of hiding it.
I mean, it could be a visual.
That could be a visual.
Like, maybe they listed it once, but like there was a confirm window and they had to like hit confirm 5 times. Like maybe that item doesn't actually exist 17 times.
It's a ghost item. Ooh.
Maybe. But so Curse, you said you had some extra information about that, like from your Twitch chat. Like is there is there like actual duping? Like do we have confirmation of this? Like
I don't have any
what other
confirmation.
info do we have?
I just heard that this exists before the patch dropped, and so I kind of dismissed it because I wasn't going to play MG, so I don't care too much. It doesn't impact me too much. But now seeing this actual evidence, it sounds like it definitely seems true to me. And
it's so funny though, because like you don't even need to do this to make currency in MG. Like this is so over. Like you don't even like. Let's just say that the duping is happening, right? You could just play in a 4-man party at like 2K corruption and make hella bank, hella favor, and never have to worry about currency ever again. Like, why would you waste your time with duping on things that might not sell when you could just generate the stuff yourself with like a 4-man group, right?
Well, that requires 3 people to be willing to party with me. Like that's a lot of friends.
It is true, but it is the same amount of effort, in my opinion. Definitely.
Somebody from my chat is saying that ESG actually confirmed this today as well.
They did.
Oh, it is
this?
real.
So that's
cool.
Oh, it is real. The items are real.
So where's the COF drama? Do we have any COF drama?
The COF drama? The COF drama is just Perry not being able to get his int chest.
Why can't you put intelligence on a rogue chest piece?
Or whenever like I open up a planner from like COF, I look at their idols and I cry.
Because they're all garbage items. Oh man, I remember like after the first couple days. No, it's not even mineral. It's like getting the idols that have like both a prefix and a suffix. Like it's still a big game, even in COF. Like having dual affix idols.
You can drop hundreds and hundreds from Orbis and still not get what you want.
Right, but like Dread, you were saying that idols really stood out to you as something in Merchants Guild that's just like far and away. It's like it's literally night and day. It's like a different video game.
Well, like I can buy hybrid HP idols. I can have perfectly rolled hybrid HP idols in every single slot.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to go. You know how rare those things are? Like Curse, like you know how many I've dropped since like starting to play last Epoch? 2
how many?
In 4 years.
Like 530s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think I have 1 or 2 myself, similar. I think.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Now they're like, it's
gold.
funny because like then someone will link me like just a smorgasbord of idols from like an Orbis kill, right? Like, yeah, well, look how many idols I got. I'm like, how many did you actually pick up? We're like,
none.
Two.
But it's a good screenshot, and you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah. And the thing is, the 529, guess what? It only goes for like how much on day 2? It was like 5 million gold or something like that. Like it wasn't even that expensive. So it's just like
I think I've been over 1 million gold once. I just keep buying stash tabs.
I mean, the stash tab guild, you do need
stash tab guild. There we go.
All the items you get, right? That's the beautiful thing is like, I thought that I was going to need a bunch of stash tabs, but it turns out I don't. You just sell it all. Because guess what? The infinite stash tab, because it's so stupid, man. Okay. You know that you can effectively use MG as a stash tab, right?
Sure, go on.
So what you do is you take an item. Let's say I need to put this 4LP item on the market. Okay. I need to like save it because I don't have enough room in my stash tab, but I have a billion favor, right? I can put it up in the thing for like 60 billion gold or something stupid like that, right? And it will stay up there and I can unlist it at any time. Who needs stash tabs when you have the market doing it for you? It's an infinite stash tab glitch.
Easy game. Easy game right there.
It's so stupid.
It is stupid because I can go over there and list it anytime. All it costs is favor. And like favor isn't a problem.
It costs me sighing deeply every time you describe that to me.
Imagine having to actually buy your stash tabs, noobs.
Can we make stash tabs cheaper? Stash tab cheaper, please.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like incoming limit of listings next cycle. All that's going to do is make the problem worse because now instead of listing a bunch of items, people are only going to list items that are very important. And then you get the other opposite problem where there is no market. So like it's weird. Like you would think that would be the first thing that they would do, but that would also ruin the market because if you look at Torchlight Infinite, they have that. They have an auction house with a limited amount of sell spots, unless you pony up money, obviously. But still, like they have that, right? And in that market, it's the exact opposite where no one's posting anything because it's not worth it because that sell spot is so
valuable to them because they only have like
valuable.
5 of them. Sure.
So like, yeah, I don't know. I think PoE gets around this effect by making the sell tabs stash tabs. Like, so like we don't have this problem in PoE.
Hey, at least we don't have D4 stash tabs, please. At least we don't have that. Come on. Could have been worse, guys.
It could be worse. Yeah.
I asked what the difference was between the Merchants Guild drama and the COF drama. And it's like, I guess COF doesn't get like good idols, but I'm glad that I don't care about any of this. Like, it's funny. It's funny. It's educational. And I get to learn about how Merchant Guild works. But like, it's so nice that I just, it completely does not affect me at all.
It's funny because like people said when I started MG, they said, Dread, I thought you said MG was bad. And like, I did say MG was bad. Not for me though. Like I play too much for it to be bad. Like that's like the problem. And it's not even me being like narcissistic or like, oh god, I'm better than you. No, I just put way too many hours into the stupid video game and I have like infinite favor and I've like infinite gold for the most part. Like I don't have problems with that, right? It's like that's like the problem. But the problem is like when you're in like rank 2 and you're an MG, you're essentially playing COF but worse because you don't have COF.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was telling my chat today. Dread did the next level play. He's like, MG sucks. MG is the worst. And then EHG buffed it 1 second before launch. And then Dread's like, oh, I'm MG.
No, this change was predetermined because like I said, Perry and I, we realized that the podcast would be very boring if we both went COF. So like we realized that it would be better if at least someone sacrificed their sanity and went MG. And I'm happy I did it because I don't know if Perry would be playing.
When it comes to Path of Exile, you love the economy stuff. I think you were the right choice to go.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Yeah. I think it's like playing a whole new game. I think.
Yeah, it is a mini game.
It is literally a whole new game.
I agree.
So we are 45-ish minutes into the podcast, and I want to pivot topics. Is that all right?
That's fine. Go right ahead.
All right. I think one of the things that I know about Curse the most, I want to like take a little moment to highlight our guest here. Curse, it seems like every other time that I tune into your stream, you're making some sort of like tier list or a Google document, and you're taking notes on all the different builds you played and trying to like min-max things and figure out which ones are good, which ones are bad, what's the relative strength. Can you tell me about like the kinds of builds that you're drawn to and like what you're looking for in your builds when you're putting together, crafting them, or just min-maxing them in general? Is it literally just damage? Is that the only thing you care about?
Hey, I know how that feels. I love it too.
Damage.
I always start with damage. And to me, it's a matter of can it meet a certain damage threshold? If it cannot, for example, single target, there's so many builds, and I've seen a lot of people enjoy builds that don't necessarily do single target damage. They're great at clearing and they're great at monos. I am not drawn to those builds. I don't know why, but I just can't really play them. I have a hard time. If it's taking like 2 minutes to kill Jorah or whatever, I just feel like my build is wrong.
Yeah, you would hate Cold Werebear.
Yeah, exactly. I did. I tried it and I was like, how is this build a build?
I think the thing is, from what I've seen, because I've seen both sides of the spectrum at this point, okay? Because I play too much. And like, at this point, how I feel about it is there's two different definitions for like what I would call a good build. A build that nukes the boss without any effort, and he doesn't like, but he's like squishy and can die, right? Or whatever. And then there's the other side of the spectrum where you're so tanky you could ignore everything and you could like drink a pot of coffee while you're killing T4 Drilla, right? Like Cold Werebear can. So I think that's like the thing is like, there is two different ways of looking at it. Because if my clear is amazing, right? Like on Cold Werebear specifically, I save all of my time in the monoliths by just mauling, going to the next pack, mauling, going to the next pack. I don't have to sit there like parry with the Rive healing hands, like hoo, 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 hoo. I just maul, everything's dead, right? And that saves me all the time in the world for me to be able to sit at Jurla for an extra minute drinking my cup of coffee. Like in terms of time, it technically is better. Like for instance, the Electrify Paladin, right? My T4 Jurla kill was like a minute or minute 10 or something like that, right? I could
That's
just
great.
face tinker and stuff like
fine,
that.
it's good.
Right? That's good DPS, by the way.
Definitely good.
That is good DPS. Like, that's good average. At least that's how we felt. But then now with the new corruption system, my Orbis takes 2 minutes. My Reign of Dragons kill takes 2 minutes. I can sit there and face tank it and stuff, but it takes 2 minutes, right? And that's because bosses have actual HP modifiers now.
Yeah.
So now I feel a lot more incentivized to actually build damage because now bosses have way more HP to, like it actually matters now. Because before, you'd eventually hit the boss DR stuff, right? But now since bosses have so much ridiculous amounts of HP, you're not hitting boss DR in like a corruption 700 like Reign of Dragons boss unless you're playing something like Falconer. Like you're not hitting that unless you're like doing absolutely insane like giga damage, right? I don't know how you feel about this though, Curse.
Yeah, no, I personally I like the giga damage, but part of the reason why I started all those spreadsheets that you were mentioning earlier, by the way, was because I wasn't sure myself what build is good. And especially when I was looking at other people's builds, it's impossible to gauge when, you have like corruption or whatever video.
Yeah, we don't have a Pee-wee Ninja. Exactly, yeah. We don't have anything like that.
POB thing, right? It's so hard to gauge. And so for me, this was a way of benchmarking, right? I just go run Jorah, try to have, not too low or not too high 8% HP on her, because there's some variance there. So try to minimize the variance and then start benchmarking the different builds against each other. And then at that point, you have a damage benchmark, which, is the most important thing in the world for me. But then you can also have other benchmarks, which are much harder. They're much more subjective, like stuff that Dread talked about, right? How fast are you killing monos? It's harder to record because somebody like me, I might be a little bit OCD about picking up items or stopping to pick up some stupid glyph of whatever.
Oh, that's funny. I pick up everything. My filter shows everything, and I just sell everything. But continue. I'm sorry.
No, that's about it. It's just I started those spreadsheets to be able to myself evaluate my own builds, but also perhaps what I see in other builds. I think so. It was just a tool.
I think that's what a tier list is supposed to be. I think, in essence, is like, what are your opinions on it? And the problem is, when it comes to this, which I'll be very light on this topic as people do not like it, but when you have someone like me, right? I've been playing a lot, and people want to hear my opinion about tier lists and stuff. That's why, like, I'm gonna look here just real quick while we're here. Where is it? My tier list video is like 33,000 views. That's 33,000 people that wanted to hear my opinion about like tier lists and stuff, right? And the problem is when I say, like, for instance, in the video, I did a joke. I was like, marksman is in D tier. I'm not explaining. I hate marksman, right? When I say that, people think that I mean that like marksman is the worst class ever conceived ever. And no, I just dislike marksman.
Oh, this is like the dread tier.
Yeah, this is the
the dread list. The dread list.
Yeah, the my tier list that I made as a joke, and I put a bunch of jokes in it because I think tier lists are a joke if they're being used as a like objective like usage of your time. So, like for instance, if we really wanted to make a tier list of all the actual good builds this patch, all of them would be either Profane Veil or like Falconer Dive Bomb shenanigans, right? And no one wants that.
But I think this is important to highlight though, Dread, and I think all three of you will agree with me here, is that depending on the audience, these tier lists can be incredibly valuable. You're talking about it from the perspective of the average player being the audience. Think about EHG as the audience though. We all three putting together a tier list that says these 5 builds are broken. That sends a message. Those 5 builds need to be, need to be addressed, need to be done something, or even classes. It doesn't matter. Whatever tier list you can think of. I think that can be a valuable feedback loop between players and EHG, because we gather input from, sorry, just to finish, we gather input from our entire Twitch chat. Everybody's, I don't play Marksman, I don't play Falconer right now, but I have tons of Falconer players coming by and telling me this is strong, this is weak. Sometimes I see a 3-second video, and that's all I need. If I see Joro dying in 3 seconds, I don't even need to watch the rest of the video. You know what I mean? Like that's all I need.
Yeah,
I've learned enough. That's enough data for me to make a conclusion there. And based on that data gathering, putting together a tier list for that kind of audience, I think can be valuable, and it's different
I think,
than player audience.
So I think for the devs specifically, and sadly, I'm going to have to say PoE wins in this regard. And like everyone's like, oh, like third-party tools, right? But PoE Ninja,
I fucking miss
bet
PoE Ninja.
PoE Ninja has probably been so integral to balancing Path of Exile. It's not even funny. Sure, sometimes it might miss the mark. Like they might like nerf, like what is it? What was that build? Essence Range Contagion. Not because it's good, but because everyone's playing it, right? They might do that sometimes. It might happen. But at the same time, that thing has been so invaluable that I feel like us missing that right now is kind of part of the problem. If I don't know if EHG has measurements on this, which they probably do now. I know that they didn't have it for offline. They didn't have it for offline, by the way. But for online, they probably do. How many people are playing Warlock and they can essentially they have a PoE Ninja at home, right? If they have that, I think they should be good to go. They have to. Yeah.
It's just a database that you can just, get data, do analysis on. It should be straightforward.
Yeah.
So
what do you think, Perry?
I'm going to circle back real quick because I want to make sure that I get a little bit more information about like Curse, especially for the people out there who may not know who you are, because I want this to be like an introduction of sorts. When it comes to builds, you said that like damage was like by far the most important thing. What else draws you to a build? Like when you see a video from someone else, when you see a clip of someone doing something, what's something that catches your eye that isn't just a big yellow number floating above a monster?
Oh, that's a lovely question. Let me tell you about my Diablo 2 days. The most fun I've ever had playing, Diablo and ARPGs, my Frenzy Barbarian. Hitting things very fast. I can't, I'm still sad that I never got to experience Aspect of the Shark when it was OP. When you could get like 40. I never got to do, you know what I mean? Like, can I have that patch for just like 10 minutes just to try that out? Please.
I mean, you could always go offline, to be fair.
Can I revert back to an old patch? Yeah. But that's what I'm talking about.
You just go and mess with, get a mod. And you just like make Aspect of the Shark, not, have a cap.
But yeah, hitting things very fast. Lots of, just spectacular stuff like that. Tankiness is just an essential piece of every build. So don't get me wrong, I don't neglect it. It's just the thing that I check, the check box that I check off after damage and everything else that's fun is taken care of.
Yeah. My checkbox that I care about the most myself is how does it feel to play? It can deal the most amount of damage ever. It can do everything in the game. It can be tanky as possible. But if I have to sit there pressing 5 buttons every single time I want to kill a white mob, it's definitely not my cup of tea. Now it's funny because people always complain to me about my builds. But that's because, guys, just because I don't like a build doesn't mean I'm not going to play it, because my current goal is to play everything. So sometimes I have to be like, grumble, and play it anyways. Like, for instance, whenever I play Marksman, I'm like, grumble, I guess I'll play it kind of thing, right? It's like time to go play Marksman and have a bad time. And I take the penance, I go and do it, right? But I don't necessarily enjoy playing these big rigmarole button builds that people see me play. I don't like playing them. I like playing the one button stuff. But at the same time, I still need to cover stuff. For instance, recently, where is it? Which build? The Judgment, One Punch Judgment build is exactly that. A build that is awful to 99% of people, but that 1% is going to enjoy it really well. So it's like it would be disservice if I just like brushed it off and ignored it, right?
Yeah, and I can't do that. I'll be honest with you. I can't play every build. The other
Yeah.
thing, the other thing I noticed about myself that I more recently started to realize is like I tend to steer away from meta builds. I don't like, and partially it's because the outcome is predictable. If you've seen a really good build maker, run something and you can see they're running whatever corruption really high, you can see they're doing great, and you look at their build planner, you can kind of tell this is min-maxed. You know what I mean? Like you can't really come up with any optimization there. I don't see any reason to run that build because I know exactly the outcome I'm going to get. And so I kind of am more drawn towards experimentation and trying things out. And sometimes that works for me, like, the good builds that I've made. And sometimes it doesn't. Anybody that's, watched my Twitch stream over the last 1 year has seen me fail many, many times. But that's part of the process, right? You guys know it as well.
I gotta tell you, from one content creator to another, like including Dread here, the videos that Dread posts on YouTube, the ones that don't do well with the algorithm, the ones that are like, hey, Dread here, this build sucks, don't play it. Like those videos.
You don't like the 8-minute long video of me talking about Clone Mage where the whole 8 minutes is me trying to kill a normal empowered Lagan?
The videos where you tell the audience straight up, like, this build's bad and I'm going to tell you all the things that I tried. Those videos are invaluable. I love those videos. Like, man, like if someone maybe I'm a build creator. I feel like my builds aren't garbage often enough. But
yeah,
the people who really trudge through the mud looking for the cool interactions and the cool builds, like they fail a lot, and it's like it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Like for instance, just recently, I posted a video of, it was like before the patch. It was my cycle starter because I lost my bet and I had to cycle start healing hands. Ooh, right. But
that's not bad.
The version that I know. At the time we weren't sure, but we also didn't know about the ward stuff, which I did not abuse, by the way. But what happened was the version that I put out on YouTube didn't function. It just didn't function because you need to heal yourself to get the Divine Bolt node, which sucks, by the way. I hate it, but that's the case. So I had to scramble, take that video down, make an apology post, and then I had to very quickly get a build ready to go. This was day one, by the way. And I think the thing is like, I fail all the time, like it happens, like everyone fails, right? And to reiterate what you were talking about earlier, Curse, at least for how I feel about the situation, I only need to play a strong build once and it's good, right? I only had to play Flame Wraiths once to be like, oh, this is good. So what happened with that build, by the way, story time. Dark Wook, a member of our community, I don't know where she is right now, but a member of our community, right? And they came up to me and they're like, hey, here's a Flame Wraith build. It looks cool. At the time, by the way, we all thought Wraiths were bad because of rework at the time. So they were like, hey, you try this. And I tried it. I'm like, wait a second. This is busted fucking OP. What the hell? And I made a video on it. And then everyone else ended up making a video on it. And it's like, Dread, why don't you update the build? I'm like, do I have to? Do I have to? Like, I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. Like, there's plenty of other people that have covered it. Why do I need to update it? Like, that's just a waste of my time. That's like just making content for the sake of making content. I don't do that, right?
I don't like revisiting builds either too much.
I think revisiting, the funny thing is I do revisit a lot of builds, but it's always the bad builds. I've only played Flame Wraiths twice, but I've played Smelter's Wrath like 10 times. Right?
You keep trying.
Yeah. And
it's like, the new Smelter's Wrath. This technology will blow your mind.
Yeah, well, no, you've seen an evolution over the years, right? Of like good bad Smelter's Wrath builds to good ones. You
It's
can
true.
get
It's true.
decent numbers out of it now. You can get decent numbers out of it. It's just like, it's just it's Smelter's Wrath, and you're on a. Like, I'll be honest, the worst part of Smelter's Wrath is on Forge Guard. Like, for instance, I've played like 10 different Erasing Strike builds, and we're very close to making an Erasing Strike build that doesn't feel awful.
I got to interrupt. I just had a flash. I had a vision. Can you imagine if you could channel Smelter's Wrath and the explosion went off and then it got echoed by a shadow?
Yeah, that'd be insane.
Can you imagine if there was like a shadow behind you channeling it after you were done channeling it? That'd be so good.
Yeah. And like for instance, one build that I revisited was back in the day, I liked playing Lightning Blast. I like Lightning Blast. I like the theme of it. I thought it was fun. Like back in the day. This was before empowered monos. It was like a long time ago. And I played a non-convergence Lightning Blast build. I just revisited it after they, added, the pylons, like the frost wall, right? And it made the build feel a lot better. And like that was a build where it was kind of bad and meh before, and now it's pretty good because it's on Rune Master now instead of Sork. And like it actually survived all the nerfs. It's doing great. I've had plenty of people tell me they love the build and stuff like that. So like I think when I revisit something, it's usually because it was bad. So if I'm revisiting a topic or revisiting a build, guys, it's probably because it was bad before.
I know that feeling. You usually keep baiting me with Battle Mage's Endeavor every time. I'm like, all right, here we go again.
Do all three of us love Battle Mage's Endeavor?
I loved it until Dragorest came in the game, and now my love is gone.
I love Battle Mage's
is my new love. Dragorest is my new love.
give me like a tier 7 melee attack speed on a Battle Mage's Endeavor, and like I promise I'll play it.
I mean,
I have the best Battle Mage's Endeavor in offline.
Oh,
I'm gonna log in right now.
Okay, never mind. Actually,
probably a 4 LP one. On
never mind. MG exists. Never mind. I shouldn't have said that.
I was gonna say, let me. While you guys keep talking, I'm just gonna log into MG and I'm gonna see if there's any 4 LP.
How many 4 LPs are sitting there right now? Wow. All right, so Curse, we are over the hour mark. I want to allow you, if you have something on your mind, to bring up the next topic. We've talked about like some build creation, what brings you to a build, what kinds of things you're looking for. We talked a bit about Merchants Guild versus COF and our experiences with it. We talked a tiny bit about the race at the very beginning, and then maybe your history, like the kinds of builds you played in other video games.
Who won that, by the way? I don't even know who won that.
Who got first place? I don't know.
2 Blade Dancers. 1 Blade Dancer. I forget the name though.
Oh, it was a random guy? Okay, cool. I was wondering if it was anyone we knew or something.
I'd like to see if anyone watching here live,
that guy's build. Yeah.
If anyone watching here live has a list of names, I'd love to see like who the top 10 or 15 people were. I think that'd be a fun thing because I actually don't know either. Yeah, Curse. Yeah, so we know a couple things that we talked about regarding you and like regarding Last Epoch as well. What else is on your mind?
Oh, a lot of the stuff we talked about. We covered a lot of the past. Let's talk about the future. What do you guys want to see 1.1? What is your wish list?
So we know there's going to be Pinnacle content. And we know already that Reddit's going to complain a whole lot that you can't play fun builds anymore. You can only play the 2 meta builds. And I look forward to all of those comment threads. It'll be great. So 1.1 is going to be like bug fixes and stuff. It's going to be probably new uniques. I expect new unique items all the time because they're pretty easy for them to do. But they said Pinnacle content. Is there anything else before we start speculating? Do we know anything else about 1.1? I don't think so.
Not really. We don't know anything about it. I'm just going to link this in chat, Perry, and I'm just going to let you look at it.
Click. That's a lot of 4 LPs. All right, buddy. All right, buddy. I'm just going to go play COF.
Yeah,
all right.
Is that item good if it's 4 LP though? Now that's the next question.
I would play it if it's 4 LP.
Okay, I think I'll play it. I will do the service. I will yoink one. I will play it.
No, it sounds fun though. Oh, come on.
It is going to be fun. I think the buff made it a lot more playable. I just think the version of the build that I played with, like the static, is not the way you go about it now. I think you just build around Lightning Blast.
Build around Lightning Blast and build around the Spark Nova on the top left of the tree.
Yeah. But yeah, so for the future, I'll be honest, I think we had a huge power creep moment this patch, obviously. I'm sure you guys can notice that.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
there's not enough content in the game to facilitate this power creep, right? And then you also have the other part where you have all these PoE streamers coming into the game. They're like, "Hey, look at my 60k Warlock build. Hey, look at my Falconer that like
That
deletes
is what
everything
they
in the
all
game."
sound like. Yes, accurate.
And like the problem is, it's like we've had this before too. Like, I don't know if you remember, but remember the old Earthquake Werebear Perry before the change?
I do remember that. Everyone had
Remember
their own
how
version of it.
everyone was playing it?
Every
Everyone
single
was
person,
like
yeah.
loving it. And then when it got nerfed and changed, everyone was like, this game sucks now.
Mhm.
And like, I think that's going to sadly happen again for 1.0. They're like, all the people who are playing Falconer and like, you know, Warlock and all that are going to like roll a Forge Guard next patch.
I think that having Warlock and Falconer released in an overtuned state is totally fine, especially for the 1.0
I think it's fine
launch.
too.
There's so much hype.
Yeah.
Everyone's so excited to do experiments, like try all these different combinations of things. But like Rune Master was strong as hell, but even Rune Master was like weaker than these two in their current states. So like they should be toned down to Rune Master. We have Druid, we have Rune Master, and we have Falconer Warlock. Those are like basically the new design principles of like what Last Epoch wants, or sorry, what EHD wants to do with Last Epoch Masteries. Let's update, like slowly but surely, update everything else. Like I know it's not sexy. Like, you know, put in one boss and then rework Falconer. Put in one boss and then rework, you know, Marksman. Put in one boss, rework Shaman. Like just like a little bit at a time. Get everything going.
And Carrion actually just solved our build, guys. You just go with the Battle Mage's Endeavor with Armor Shred. You go Frostbite, Lightning Blast.
Done. Beautiful.
There you go. Beautiful. I hate Frostbite, so I'll leave that to you guys.
I love Frostbite. Yeah, so like what else do I expect for 1.1? I have always wanted to play Void converted Rive as a Void Knight, and I think it's a crime that the Echo node in Rive doesn't add the Void tag to it. And they've said that they're interested in introducing a new unique item at some point that that adds the Void tag to Rive. So I'm looking forward to that someday existing, maybe in 1.1.
I can't wait. It's gonna be like the Dancing Strikes weapon.
It's gonna be garbage. Gladiator thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope to God it's not a weapon. But with that in mind, I hope that they also, maybe on that same unique item, or maybe on like a parallel unique item, add a way for me to convert healing hands to void damage. Let me play some VK healing hands. Oh my God, I want to.
I think the way that unique should work is it should convert all the basic attacks into void, like Vengeance, Rive, and Multi-Strike.
Sure.
I think that would be fine.
Done.
I think it could be a trifecta.
Please, it'd be so cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I'm looking forward to. That's my wish list right now, as somebody who's played a lot of healing hands and could easily be baited into playing even more healing hands. It's so good.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the game though. I think the game's like a lot better as a consequence of all this. I just think that like now is the time to add content in the upper end of the game, right? Like
now that people are getting there. There wasn't more than 20 people who were getting to 1,000 corruption in the past. And now 1,000 corruption is like, oh yeah, Billy made it, Johnny made it, Jane made it, Kathy made it. Like everyone's fucking 1,000 corruption now.
5,000 corruption.
Yeah,
and
like
the corruption, and 1,000 corruption today is supposed to be 3,000 corruption yesterday.
Yeah, and then people ask me, they're like, Perry, why aren't you at 1,000 corruption? I'm like, I'm bored, dude. I'm re-rolling.
Like, I think.
What are you doing, Perry?
I think the problem is people like, sure, the new corruption is harder, but it actually isn't.
No,
it's really steady. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you? I know we have two very literate people who I'm talking to on the podcast here. Do you two read modifiers on the echoes anymore?
Before I do a boss, I'll just like glance at them.
Sure. Maybe you glance at them. Maybe you don't take the dodge one because dodge is annoying.
I mean, I just go and read the modifier and I see 700% more health and damage, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, it's like does Twitch chat read? Well, I know the answer to that question, but like
I think that now that the modifiers are the way they are, they should take the opportunity to 1.1 to rework the modifiers to be more entertaining and interesting.
Yeah, area contains nothing but diamond matrons.
I think the core
Oh,
gameplay
Yes.
loop
Yes.
juicy.
isn't there, I think, in terms of the actual end game experience. Like, sure, we're running these monos, but there's no thought process to it. There's no strategy. It's just I do it because I want to do it. And sometimes, sadly, due to the way a gamer brain works, right, that's not enough incentivization, right? At least in my opinion. Now we have the reroll echoes, we have like the memories, but other than that, there's not really what I would call a strategy to the echoes or anything like that. I think
Mhm.
that like it needs advancements in that regard. I think that like it's so weird because I'll say that like people are like, well, I like how simple it is. Like I think EHG's trying to go for a simple game, and then we get the Merchants Guild and like Cliff's insight. It's like, what do you want? Do you want it to be complicated or do you want it to be simple? Like, what do you want, guys? Like, do you want it to be Glyph of Insight Simulator or do you want it to be like Diablo 4? Like, what do you want? Like,
Do you want it? Do you want it to feel like Legos? Do you want it to feel like a Rubik's cube? Do you want it to feel like checkers? Do you want it to feel like chess? Like what? Like I want a little bit of thought, but right now I'm just like not reading echo modifiers, and it's smooth sailing
same.
calm seas, and I'm not sure that it should be smooth sailing calm seas. So
Yeah.
when the monolith effect was first introduced, like 083, I think was back when that happened. I loved and like I played like 2 days of 082. And then 083 was like, boom. That was like basically when I started playing Last Epoch. Then they had the beacons, the beacons that show where the next couple echoes around you. They have the Vessel of Chaos, they have the Vessel of Memory, and then they have the Shade of Robus. That's 4 like meta related echoes that currently exist on the Monolith web. I would love to see 1 or 2 more. I think there's definitely some more meta stuff that you could do to manipulate the web.
The whole system could benefit from like 10. I'll be honest. Like,
well,
I think
one at a time. Let's stretch it out over the next 10 years.
Obviously, but
We can have 10 patches. But hey, hearing you guys, it sounds like my take is actually a bit of a hot take because I'm on a totally different page when it comes to my wish list for 1.0. 1.1, I guess.
How dare you?
Yeah, we can have a healthy
don't say
debate
balance.
right here.
Don't say balance. It's not going to happen.
Not only balance, I want like a spring cleaning. I want a spring cleaning bug fixing. There are so many skills that don't work as intended. So many nodes that don't work as intended. So many bugs with multiplayer.
I would
balance.
love. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to finish the thought, you said it yourself, Perry and Dread. You both said it. I think power creep. We've had so much power creep. And the disparity between the strongest build and I don't know, let's not even look at the weakest build, but the weakest class.
We can't even say Acid Flask anymore. We can't even say it, Perry.
Acid Flask is garbage. It's still garbage.
We can't even
it's
play
still garbage.
Tempest Strike anymore either. What do you mean it's still garbage?
Acid Flask garbage.
Really?
Yes.
You just
absolute
play
trash.
with the explosive trap.
You only can do this one particular thing with it using this other skill? Yeah, it's garbage. Acid Flask is garbage.
That's still higher than like I don't know, like.
So here's like Curse is saying that he wants spring cleaning, and like
yes,
they need hype though. So how can you combine spring cleaning with hype?
And I get it. I'm just on a different page because I am happy with the amount of content. Don't get me wrong. I always want more content.
Yeah.
But I feel like my enjoyment of the game is slightly diminished because of how many bugs and how rough the state of the balance is. Like the strongest class versus the weakest class, a year ago, it was not such a big disparity. Today, you have the strongest class being able to kill Jora in 1 second with like 15 different builds. And then you have, I don't even know, how many hours would it take with Forge Guard to kill Jora?
Well, I mean, there's like silly. A few Forge Guard builds, but yeah. It's
when it's like, a factor of 100x with your best option, and you're 100 times weaker. That is extremely alarming to me.
Yeah. So a thought that I had, I mean, a couple of minutes ago, I'm just going to echo myself here, is like I want the next couple of patches to be like mini rework for Shaman, new Pinnacle boss, like have those happen at the same time, and then patch 1.2 mini Marksman rework plus Pinnacle boss, like patch 1.3. Forge Guard rework plus Pinnacle boss. Like that's what I would like to see realistically.
This is also, I think, with like actual League cycle content as well.
Yeah, totally. And like that will happen, right?
Yeah, that would be fun. Like it would be nice to have a league like that where it's just like here for like a little bit or something like that. Obviously, like it could stay in the game. You know what? I can't even say Ore of Decay is bad because like it's good for utility.
I'll
So
say
I
it
can't
for
even
you.
say that. Like I I'm trying
It's
to
bad.
AOD is
there you
bad.
go. Now we can Dancing Strikes is now at the bottom. Oh, not even Cinder Strikes. Dancing Strikes is now at the bottom. Woohoo.
The thing is, it's not
playable.
even 1 or 2 skills. You can count like 10 or 20 skills that are like absolutely awful.
Yeah, I was just trying to find like the new worst because it changed, right?
Serpent
I
Strike.
hear you.
Let me help you.
Oh, Serpent Strike. There you go.
Let me
There
help you with
go.
that one.
Even Dancing Strikes is used. But to be fair, use it as like a bug, but it doesn't matter. It's just like whatever.
It's not dealing
But,
damage though. Ring of Shields doesn't deal damage. Also, I've
Ring of
seen
Shields
some.
is a good utility skill. Like it gives you like 50% increased armor, 40% increased block effect, which by the way is a stat that does not exist for the most part. Like increased block
It
effect
goes
is a
on one
very
particular
rare stat.
item. All right, listen. Before we try to one up ourselves in well, actually, I think I'm gonna call it quits here. This has been about an hour and 20 minutes, and this has been splendid. Curse, thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening and chatting here with Judd and I. I appreciate it. Let us know where, if the audience wants more of you, where do they find you?
Twitch and YouTube. Yeah, I try to keep my social media accounts to minimum as much as possible. But yeah, Twitch, I think it's TheCurseBG on both, most likely. So thank you guys for the invite, though. It's been a blast.
Glad
Love
that
your
we
work.
could sync up our schedules and have you here. Dread, thank you as always for taking some time out of your busy Friday evening and chatting.
Mm-hmm.
And then whether you were watching here live on twitch.tv or you're watching later after the fact on YouTube or on Spotify, make sure to let us know where you're watching so we can give you the best viewing experience possible. And like always, we'll see you next time. Have a good night.